Hey sis, all right. There you go, girl. That crown almost slipped, baby. But hey, not on my watch. We're here together.
Yeah, you wanted a million and you show it. What you want isn't really that important. You've been on my mind.
Hi, my name is Kimberly, and if you don't know it, I'm doing a Happy New You series in which I'm just talking about those things that we as women, for the large part, already know, but sometimes we need a little reminder. Sometimes we need to hear someone else point it out to us that yes, you are all that. You are the queen, whatever the title is you want. You are her, that girl, all those things, right? But even with being that, sometimes we can get caught up in what's happening or circumstances or busy, and we can forget that we are the ones who indeed do wear the crown as well. Of course, we have our kings, but what would a king be without a queen, right? And so I feel like sometimes our crowns get tilted, if you will, and we just need a little help adjusting them and getting them back to center. And that, I hope, is something that I'm doing. I hope that as we talk about things and communicate with each other in the comments and share ideas and exchange thoughts on things, that we make sure that, hey, since your crown is a little bit tilted, let me help you with that, girl. And I want you to do the same thing for me. So if that sounds like the kind of content you like, then you are in the right place. And without further ado, let's get to talking. So what I wanted to talk about today is I saw a young lady and she was doing a video. It's a little haul. And she was basically just talking about how she had purchased some fast fashion items and she was feeling good about it. Don't rain on her parade. She was just saying, in my opinion, these shoes are comparable to Zara shoes. The shoes you get from Zara may not be leather either. These aren't leather. So in my opinion, these are just as good. In my opinion, this dress is just as good as any Zara dress. See how it looks on me? The fit is nice. In my opinion, I feel good about this. So you may not feel the same way, but if not, then that's your opinion. And I just kept thinking, my gosh, why does she have to keep saying, in my opinion? And get this, I'm not blaming her. I'm saying, why as a community of women do we tend to be so hypercritical that she feels the need to keep expressing that, to keep saying, in my opinion, when I feel like her energies could have been better spent saying, hey, you see this top? I got this from whatever fast fashion store, and I think it's comparable to a Zara outfit because the seaming of it is so nice. The material feels really good. You know what I mean? She could have spent her energy explaining that to us and selling the product in that way instead of having to sell herself as she talked about a product. And I feel like she's not the only one who's guilty of that. I know that I personally am very hypercritical of myself. Most women I know are also hypercritical of themselves. And now, some of us express it in different ways. Like, we may not be feeling good about ourselves, so we point out what we consider to be a flaw in someone else. That's really where that comes from. Like, I've never seen a person who's happy and confident and all the wonderful things take time out of their lives to knock someone else's game, hustle, or look. It's not what we as happy people do. And I do consider myself to be a happy person. Am I a perfect person? Absolutely not. Those are the flaws, and that's part of the reason I'm doing the Happy New You series, right? I feel like that's that exchange of women shifting those crowns and making sure, okay, sis, you look good. Because I genuinely feel like if I'm standing amongst a group of women who feel good about themselves, who feel elevated, who feel like they are their highest selves, who have their crowns centered. I'm just gonna make that my little phrase now, I guess. But if I'm standing amongst women who feel like that, it makes me feel a little taller. I've never been that person who needs to push someone else down in order to feel taller. And God bless those who feel that way. It looks miserable. I've seen it, and flat out, honestly, just looks miserable. I mean, I feel like we're not that, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be here. But when we're struggling to explain ourselves and we're over explaining, and we don't want to make sure someone understands us, we want to make sure they overstand us. When we're doing all of that, to me, that feels like we have some kind of breakdown in communication, or we have some kind of insecurity in the idea of us communicating our thoughts. Now, I will say I was once a person who was on the other end of the spectrum. I just felt like what I said is what I said, and that's all that I said. I'm done with it. And, that's it, that's all, no more. But thankfully, I've grown out of that. And part of that probably comes from the idea of wanting to model myself more after my father. My father had a way of effectively communicating his point, a willingness to hear someone else's point, and then even from that, looking at it from yet a third perspective of how the exchange between himself and another person would look, how it could be perceived, and how he could thwart any misunderstandings in that way. But at the same time, he was not someone who overextended himself in terms of explaining himself. And so when he transitioned, my sisters and I, we were going through the things, figuring out what goes where, charity, people, all of that. And we came across a pair of his old glasses, and I definitely wanted that because I knew within myself I needed to have that gift of seeing things better from another person's perspective. I could do it in terms of, okay, let's see, what might their argument be? I could do it from that perspective, but in terms of just genuinely trying to understand how they would feel and how they may come across and how I can come across better with them and communicate with them, I didn't really do that so much because it was, I said what I said kind of thing. It wasn't, I'm just going to dump it on your chest. It was just, I'm kind of finished with it. But now it's more of a thing where I want to be understood. I want us to have a mutual understanding, a mutual exchange. I mean, that is the real definition to me of communication. It's not so much things go my way. And I will say, to my slight defense, sometimes that part can be a negative aspect of being a teacher because I get used to presenting information. I get used to stating a thing, and then, I'm on a time crunch, so I have to move on to the next piece of information I have to give. All right, well, I'm done with math. It's time for me to teach reading now. Okay, it's time for me. And so I got used to kind of probably cutting things off. So maybe that's a part of where it came from. No, I'm giving myself an out. The reality is, I was just that way. As just that way. But anywho, I'm not that way anymore. I think it's important too. Here's the part where I'm going to contradict myself a little bit. I think a huge part of why women, and I'm just going to say Black women because that is, I mean, clearly that's what I am, so that's how I most identify. But I think a huge part of why so many of us as Black women feel misunderstood is because we're assigned so many of these titles that just really, I don't know the people like that. I mean, do my friends and I get turned up? Yes, we do. We say our thing. But as we do that, we're doing it in a specific setting. We're doing it in a specific context. We are not always that people. But when you see the shows, the reality shows that portray us that way incessantly, when you see the shows that do not present us in their best light, and yet they say, this is how we are. By and large, I know so many tender, loving, kind, wonderful women that it's not even funny. When I hear the society at large, I'll say, describe us in that way, I'm always like, who is they talking about? Because I've got friends who have, and this is in the whole other spectrum, the whole opposite end of it. And I'm not saying that this is right by any stretch of the imagination, but I've got friends who have been in relationships and they've tolerated much mess that they shouldn't have tolerated. Where was that angry Black woman? She didn't exist. That was a woman trying to make her family work. That was a woman trying to stay together. That was a woman trying to ensure that instead of being a baby mama, which is a title that we get, she was a woman holding her family together. That I've seen that woman a whole lot more than I've seen this whole baby mama culture that people talk about. Sometimes things don't work out, but I mean, let's keep it a buck. You can be a baby mama and you've been married for 20 years. You've been married, you get a divorce. Now you a baby mama, so I don't like those assignments, but as much as I don't like them, I don't feel an obligation for myself, and I sure don't want you to have it, of over explaining ourselves, because that can be exhaustive. And then not only are you trying to explain, you're trying to show, you're trying so hard. But here's the catch, and here's what's really important to understand. Those people who don't understand it after all that explaining you've done, to me, I call those the double dutchers, because they're the people, they're waiting to get in. As soon as you shut up saying whatever you're going to explain, whenever you get through over explaining, they're going to jump in and talk about how, yeah, but what about this and what about that? And they're still going to choose to not understand. That's why it's important that we don't exhaust ourselves, or we don't even exert our energy toward explaining to those people who already have made the decision that they're not going to understand anyway. Like, for real, no thank you. To me, it's just better to keep on with your train of thought, because when those people are choosing to not understand, in my opinion, I feel like, I'm just saying, no, I'm kidding, but when those people are choosing to not understand, it's because they've got an agenda. Their agenda might be to just tilt your crown a little bit, make sure that you don't feel like you all that. I just got to bring you down a peg or two. That could be their agenda. Their agenda could also be to derail your focus from whatever it is you're discussing. And here's why I say that too. I was in Walmart the other day. I always go down at Walmart, don't it? But I was at Walmart the other day, and I just happened to hear the tail end of a couple's argument. This couple actually didn't even look like us. How about that? So we ain't the onlyest ones who battle this over-explaining thing sometimes. I think we're overly burdened with it as Black women because there's so many other titles, but we're not the only ones. I mean, we women stand in solidarity in a lot of instances when things get mansplained and all of that. But back to this couple. So they're in Walmart, and like I said, I caught the tail end of it, and she was saying, well, yeah, now I'm going to react that way. Now I'm going to say that because you act like you don't understand what I've been saying to you for the last half hour. I'm telling you, you were foul for that. And so whatever the foul that he did was, as I was hearing that, I was like, oh, okay, I see what you did, because I had that done to me a time or 10. A time or 10. And I mean that. It's that thing where whatever the behavior was that she was upset with, and I'm just gonna make it up, he was probably being an angel. He might have done the right thing. I really don't know. But if he was looking at another woman in Walmart, for example, and she might have said, hey, what are you doing? Why are you looking at another woman? He probably gaslit her, probably gave her the whole, I wasn't doing that. What are you talking about? What are you tripping? You tripping, Hand up if have you ever, okay. So yeah, and I'm just saying that, I'm throwing that out there. I don't know what their argument was about, but I do know that whatever it was initially that she was upset with, she felt upset with something she thought he did, and now it had turned into a whole argument of them because of how she communicated it. And that got me to thinking. I was like, yeah, I've seen that. That can be another reason. So sometimes it's to knock you down a square. Another time it may be to deflect from whatever their behavior is and things like that. But here's the other flip side of that. I'm also going to say this, because this is important. Still at Walmart. Have not left Walmart yet. It is in Kansas City. It is dummy cold outside, like negatives. They had a game the other day, and my daughter and I were laughing about it. We're looking up tickets. We were like, when you ever get a playoff ticket for $100 when it's -4 outside? I mean, that was like a record breaking. It might have even gone all the way down as low as -7. I'm not 100% sure, which is crazy because I'm sitting here watching the game like, I mean, you call me a fair weather friend if you want to, but no, baby, negatives, is you kidding? And they had some people, I ain't gonna tell you what they look like, but you can imagine, had some people out there anyway with shirts off at the game. Whatever. But anywho, still at Walmart, I'm walking out and I notice, yeah, it's cold. And I see, several people moving back and forth because it's about to snow. People feel like they've got to buy a whole bunch of things to stock up food. Like, don't y'all keep food in y'all's freezer? Y'all don't never heard of. Believe me, I wouldn't have been there if I didn't need to go and get some things for my mother. Only a mother and a child, I guess, could get me out in that kind of weather. Because for myself, I tough it out. Nah, I ain't that hungry. I ate last week. I don't even need to. Negative, please. But anyway, so I go and I'm getting these things and I'm looking at this woman and, she's just walking head down. She's not paying any attention to her environment whatsoever. And I look up just in time to see a guy come in the opposite direction from her. But from my viewpoint, I couldn't tell exactly how close he was to her. So it turns out he was pretty close. And they ended up bumping and, kind of watched long enough just to see that he kept going his way. She picked up something she dropped and then he didn't even pick it up for her. That was rough. But she kept going her way and then, I got on in the car because like I said, it was cold. But that just kind of made me think that a lot of times I've seen all these, you've probably seen them too, the 60 Minutes, 2020s, Tamron Hall investigative stories or whatever those are that I used to watch. In case you don't know, I love documentaries and just crime stories and stuff like that. That kind of, I don't know, I find that entertaining. So anyway, I see that, and it reminded me of, I had told you guys before that some of the things to do to make sure you're a person of interest, well, not a person of interest like in a criminal show, but you're an interesting person, I should say, is take classes and things. And so I don't tell you guys stuff that I don't personally do. One of the things I've done is taken a self-defense class, and I like it because it gives you a certain amount of confidence in terms of going where you are. It also teaches you to be aware of your surroundings, which I guess is why that lady caught my eye. I'm looking at her like, you know, I don't care how cold it is. I'm not so bundled up that I don't see around me, that I'm not aware of all of my surroundings in different areas. I'm looking around. Even as I drive, I'm going to look in the rearview mirror, the side mirrors and all. You know, it's just important to be aware. If you've never taken a self-defense class, I strongly encourage you to do that. Now, don't take it and feel like that means you're going to go out here and fight these men's, not even these sassy men's, not even the ones who weigh less than you. They're still built as men. They are still strong, right? But it also gives you a sense of strength. It helps you to be aware. And there are still things that you can do to give yourself some advantage. But yeah, self-defense classes are important. But here's what I was talking about with that. It's ironic. The person who taught the class was a former retired police officer, and he was just telling us about a lot of the things that happen to women, a lot of situations and attacks and things and stuff that we do, you know, just to let someone know, hey, you communicate with your body as well as your words, your voice. You make sure you're making eye contact. Those are the important communication things. And once a person has violated or moved past all of that, now your body should be saying, okay, it's time. It's time. Get ready. Ha! You know, as crazy as that sounds, we used to make that noise, and something about that noise, it does get you fired up and it does get you ready and things like that. But once you have done your bit of communication, then you move into the next mode. So let's go back to the case of the woman at Walmart. Let's just say, I'm going to stick with my own example. I could be dead wrong. I'm not saying that I know whatever their circumstance was, but whatever it was, there was something about his action that made her feel a certain way. To me, instead of getting into the ra-ta-ta-ta-ta and the argument and the ra-ra-ra and all of that stuff, it would be easier, or it would be a better communication style to say, you know what, here's what I saw, and in seeing that, here's how I felt. That's all. You don't have to say, and I need you to do this and don't look and don't, you know, just assuming that what I said is true, that he was looking. You don't need to go into the, I don't need you to look and don't do this and don't, what? Why? All you need to say is, here's what I think I saw, and this is the way it made me feel. You'll gain more understanding with what that person decides to do with that bit of information than you ever would with you demanding and telling and saying, restating and arguing and back and forthing with, come on, are you kidding? You're going to waste all of that energy. That energy should be better spent with you and on you. And then let's go back to what I said about the self-defense thing with that, you know, how you get that energy and you get going. Well, before that though, you're communicating with someone, excuse me, you're a little bit too close. And all the while you do that, we start getting into our stance. You know, I'm a right-handed person, so more so I'm going to do this because why? My right hand is getting ready to come up and do whatever it is that I need to do in the event that I need to do something. But that to me is just two very extreme examples. I hope you're following me with this, but I just kind of want to talk about, don't over-explain yourself. Don't feel obligated to keep explaining, whether it's the case of the woman or it's the case of, hey, this is my body, this is my space, this is what I need you to give me. Give me 6 feet now. I know the quarantine is over, but if you still feel like you need 6 feet, because here's the thing. I have never been a person who, I don't randomly assign danger to someone. I don't randomly assign feelings about someone. Like, and maybe too, that's a part because as a Black person, I know people randomly assign things to me that they may have heard. So I don't randomly assume that, oh, a person with a tattoo is dangerous. He might be just as dangerous as a pretty woman though. Hey, it just depends on how I feel when you're in my proximity. It depends on how I feel when I make that eye contact, because I've seen some shifty women that I know were up to something that was a little bit no good. Now, I'm a girl's girl, a woman's woman, all those things you want to say, but that doesn't mean that I just ignore my instinct. I feel like when you have a thought or a feeling about someone, at least this is true of me, I have had thoughts and feelings of people, and I have thought, they're probably not that bad. Now, the thought has already crossed my mind, and I'm already thinking they're, to some extent, got something going on with them. But I might think, oh, they're not that bad. Come to find out later, oh yeah, they may have been that bad and more. So I may not realize the extent of how bad someone is, or the extent of how dangerous someone is, or the extent of how, conniving someone may be. But once that seed is planted, I don't talk myself out of it. That's another part of why I think isolation is important. You need to start hearing your own voice and hearing the sound of it and feeling what you feel like and understanding that. For a lot of people who just don't get it, I don't think it's because you don't choose to get it. I hope it's not because you don't choose to get it, but I'm strongly encouraging you, spend a little time with yourself, get to know yourself, get familiar with yourself, hear your voice, hear your thoughts. Be alone for a little bit. You ain't got to go all the way on an international vacation and all of that, but solo dates, I cannot emphasize enough how very empowering a solo date is, and how very self-aware that it just makes you feel. It gives you that clearer understanding of yourself that I feel like will make you feel less obligated to feel understood by others. It allows you to walk through with a certain amount of confidence and awareness and self-awareness that, if you got somebody trying to tilt that crowd, you're able to tilt it right back upright yourself. Or if you see someone whose crown is a little askew, hey sis, all right, there you go, girl. That crown almost slipped, baby, but hey, not on my watch. We're here together. You know what I mean? So anyway, that is my random spiraled all over the place. I hope you followed me anyway. Thoughts on explaining yourself, being overextended when it comes to explaining yourself, and still just being understood. So hopefully, if you're still here with me down this long and winding road, I've said something that you like, and as such, I'd love it if you would go ahead, click the like button, as that lets YouTube know that, hey, that Kymberly Bonet girl has an audience of people who appreciate her, and maybe we can share her with an even broader audience. Until next time, thank you so much, and take care.